Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Monday, June 23rd edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you here from the WellPoint Studios on the podcast that keeps its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. And today, we're really going to keep our finger on the pulse of Lowell and a topic, or should I say a building, that has been a major point of conversation, well, over the last several months, over the last several years, hell, over the last several decades. We're talking, of course, about the Smith Baker Center, the storied and historic Smith Baker Center right across the street from Lowell City Hall and the Pollard Memorial Library. And I'm excited today to be joined by three of the individuals who want to save that building and have for now. You jumped on that wrecking ball like, Miley Cyrus in her music videos, and you kept that wrecking ball from hitting the building. And that in and of itself was an incredible political accomplishment, but there's a lot more to do, and I want to talk to the three of you, learn a little bit more. What have you found out since you've begun this process? What do the folks out there need to know to make an informed decision about whether the building is salvageable or not? And how do you get it done? So I'm going to start left to right. We're going to start with the kind of the guy who's become the face of the effort. You're shaking your head no, but you are. You're either lauded or cursed by others as the guy who convinced a city councilor to bring that motion back up after the building was voted to be demolished. It was reconsidered, and enough councilors either changed their mind or made it to the meeting to give it a second chance or a ninth chance at life, whatever we want to call it. Dennis McCarthy is joining us here in the WellPoint Studios. Dennis, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, and I want to thank you very much for inviting us, because we've been looking forward to an opportunity to share what we've learned. Now we've had 2 tours inside the building. So.
Yeah, and you all just came here literally from the building. You did your second tour of the building along with some folks. So I can't wait to learn more about what's in there. Owen Kelly is joining us here as well. You've got a background kind of in the arts and putting things together, spaces and whatnot. Yeah. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. Chris McCarron, off to the right of your viewing screen here, in real estate, common spaces, and you've done some other projects as well yourself. So, you bring a skill set to this. Welcome to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Teddy. Nice to be here.
Great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to kind of hearing, what the vision is and how you're going to make it become reality. Because I think the one thing that everybody, no matter where they are in this issue, is that if it can be salvaged, that's the best case scenario. So we're going to get right to our discussion. Let me quickly just thank our Daily Pulse sponsors. Ray Booten is a licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He is a certified appraiser in both of those states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, or if you'd like said property appraised, Ray Booten is the one to call. And you can find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Get his email, get his phone number. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you also to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thanks to WellPoint, thanks to Ray. We'll thank some other sponsors in a few minutes, but let's get right down to it. All right. Is Smith Baker Center, SBC as I'll kind of abbreviate it for now, is it salvageable? And not you hope it is, you're optimistic it is, you want it to be salvageable. You've now been in there multiple times. Can that building be saved in its current form, exterior, preserving the historic interior, and can it live another 100 years in some capacity?
100%. 100%.
Not a second of hesitation.
Not a second.
Having been in there.
Not a second.
Well, I think we should look at the report that was done by Gale Engineering that basically said it has a price to save it, right? But in that report, that $3.4 to $4 million, it carried $1.6 million in soft costs. That's general conditions for a contractor and architectural drawings, just to stabilize the structure. I don't know if we need to spend $1.6 million in soft costs.
Pretty sure we don't,
Also, it carried $700,000 for windows. Now, we were amazed the first tour we did of the building, of the windows. And the double hung windows, I think there's 92 windows in total, are intact, except for the ones on the west elevation. There's a couple of sashes missing and a couple on the east elevation, facing the Green School, and one sash missing on the north side. That's not $700,000 worth of windows. So there's some numbers that are odd there in that report, but I just wanted to highlight the roofing number called out an area of 30,000 square feet with a square foot number. The roof area is under 10,000 square feet. So I just want to draw our attention to the report that $3.4 to $4 million is maybe a little high.
You say that with confidence, and I'm going to push back on that because we're just last Friday we found out a project that has been budgeted many times over is now another 47 million down to 40 million, blah, blah, blah. We're looking at a Rourke Bridge that started at between 60 and 100 million and now 273. And if you think it's going to be built for 273, I have another bridge to sell you. Why are you so confident that these construction costs and the costs, first of all, to do the $3 to $4 million shoring up, and then ultimately the development costs, that they might come in lower and not higher, as we're seeing in so many other public projects here in Lowell and in Massachusetts?
I think you're talking about two different things. We're talking about not restoring the building to functioning as a full-service building that's a performing arts center, a cafe, a community kitchen, a museum, or office space. We're talking about stabilizing the building. The 3.4 to 4 million was just to stabilize the building. So, but one of the first things I did when I got on that first tour on June 10th, I went to the basement to see what the slab was like in the basement. Okay, I've learned.
How many borings did you drill? More than one, I hope, right?
You know what? We can learn from experience in the city, okay? So we definitely went into the building trying to see where the gaps are in the report and try to understand where, because, you know, we hadn't been in the building. We didn't know how bad it was. So,
Or how
just
good.
to-
Yeah.
just
how
to-
good it is,
right, just to
actually.
stabilize the building is not the full enchilada like we're doing at Lowell High. So we're talking about two different things.
All right. And you believe that you're confident that you, whatever that number is going to end up being, whether it's the 3 to 4, or if you can trim it down to 2 or whatever is done, you're confident that being able to do that work will allow the building to at least stay
Right.
a building, not pose a danger to members of the public driving by, parking in the area, walking on the sidewalks.
Absolutely.
And that it can stay in a stable enough position until you can then come up with whatever the business model is and then raise whatever the funding is. You're confident this, having seen
100%.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're even more confident after having been in the building. You know, we were thinking worst case scenario, you know, we're going to be ducking down from ceilings that are falling, and we're going to be like walking on floors that are shaky and stepping over huge gaping holes in the floor. I mean, you have to go and see it, Teddy, but the building is in really beautiful condition.
For having been left.
For having been left for 25 years. I mean,
25 years,
yeah, let's absolutely.
And we've got great reports. The Gale Engineering report, the material, not necessarily the budgeting pricing, but the material in the report is wonderful. It lists 668 roof slates that need to be repaired. So it actually gets into that kind of detail. It lists 61 square feet of brick facade that needs to be repaired. We have 2 masons looking at it and 2 roofers looking at it to see if they agree with that report, because we need buy-in. But the asbestos and lead paint report the city had done lists all of the places that the building has that need to be mitigated or dealt with. So we have great material from the city.
All right, so I just want to pause right here because folks looked at that Gale report back in January and February and said, this is it. This is the final nail in the coffin. You're looking at it and you're all smiling. You're like, oh, this is better than
Yeah, I think when
we believed.
when we walked in for the first tour last week, we were really taken aback by how in great shape it was compared to the report. You know, I think we all read the Gale report numerous times and have been disheartened by it, but also a little in disbelief that it was actually true. I think there's obviously a lot of things in the background behind the scenes that might have informed that report as well, that were some forces working against us in this kind of project, to be blunt about it. But we were really surprised compared to the report. We were not seeing nearly what they were projecting in that report.
Okay. What's an example? What is something that they said was not structurally sound or needed a complete, demolition or rehab that you're like, no, it's not the case? You cited the roof, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to do the entire roof?
We're probably going to try to address the entire roof, because you have to remember the nails on City Hall, the nails on Lowell High, the nails on these old slate roof buildings the city has, Smith Baker included, are over 100 years old, okay? So we will have loose slates again if we don't try to fix the other 9,500 slates that are up there, right? So we're looking at potentially doing a new roof.
Okay.
Because I think that would be the smart thing to do, right?
If you're going to send people up there on a pitched roof and you're going to pay a ton of money anyway, you might as well get the whole thing done. And, okay. Right. But what about structurally, the support beams, the foundation, as we joked about, the borings and whatnot?
I hate the...
Please.
No, Dennis.
Sorry.
This is your
forte, absolutely.
We're going to come to the two of you when we talk about, all right, did Dennis somehow manage to convince everybody to put the money in and save it? Now, how are you going to raise the money and sell it? But
so, as an architect, I know when structures appear to be in stress, right? I've worked in an office for 30 years with structural in-house. So I had a lot of training as what I was asking for that I couldn't do, right? So I understand structure somewhat. I ran to the basement to see the condition of the footings and the piers that support the structure, as well as to learn what other problems are down there. But and the basement structure is strong.
Strong.
So then I went upstairs to look at the supports that are holding the building up. Cast iron columns are there.
And that's interesting, because they're talking about that the wood is rotting, which the wood is rotting in some areas, but inside the wood is cast iron beam. So cast iron column. So sure, the wood has to be refacaded or whatever, redone. But
you're confident you know what's inside these wood beams?
You can see.
You behind the walls. You're confident that everything is
no.
doable?
We tried to get in the attic today.
Okay.
And I could not understand how best to do it safely. So we put that off. Getting into the attic is a big must-have for us to see the condition of the structure in the roof. However, the barrel vaults are made out of corrugated metal, believe it or not. They're decorative corrugated metal. It's not a robust material. It's kind of flimsy. And so if there was a lot of problems with the roof structure, you would notice it in the corrugated metal.
Yeah.
There's one corner drooping a few inches by the stage, but we've looked at previous photographs of the Smith Baker over time, and that had been the case for quite a while, prior to the building being unused in 2022. So I'm hopeful, but I still don't have a guarantee that the structure up there in the attic is gonna not, sustain some rebuild, but I'm hopeful.
All right. I'm going to get to you in a quick second, Chris, on this question, but from an architectural standpoint, what's the benefit of salvaging that building versus just doing something from scratch?
Tear that sucker down and put up 7 stories of housing. That's a great idea, Teddy. I like that. We can cram 50 families in there, right? Yeah, let's do that.
Well, that is a component you have to deal with, though, is it not? Because of the way the property was deeded over to the city and then ultimately to
and that's something
other uses.
There are community. I mean, we don't have the definitive answer on the HUD funding. But we believe, based on what we've read and who we've spoken to, that there are community uses that are not housing that would still allow the city to not have to repay the HUD money.
Okay. Since you jumped in, why is it more desirable to save an old building? And this debate is had in Lowell a lot they had it with the mill buildings, right? Back in the 60s and 70s before, National Park
And
came
I'm
in
glad
and
you
started
brought that
saving
up,
them.
right?
How does this fall into that discussion?
So what would Lowell look like if we would have taken down all those mill buildings? If the Academic Arts Center was just like a parking lot or, 7 stories of housing or whatever, would the city be better off or worse off? I feel like the vision that we had during the Lowell plan, when the Lowell plan started, that some of that vision has got lost. And very understandably, we're trying to fix some we have a housing shortage today, so let's put up some more housing. But is that really the best place for that housing, right? Are there places where people could have some place to park, where they could have a playground, where there'd be a place for, children to play in this housing structure? Or do we want to just really cram people into, 7 stories of just a monolithic structure that's going to really detract, I think, from the whole downtown vision?
I'm afraid where the political movement is going, especially at the state level, the latter is the answer. But
is that really the right answer for the long term?
Architecturally, is there an advantage to an old building like that, something built in the 1800s, early 1900s, versus the stuff that you see built today, the box cutter stuff?
So it's an emotional reaction that people have when they are in the city. It's an emotional reaction that people have when they visit the city. It is bringing, life and joy to people when they come down the street, especially in the evening, and they see those stained glass windows lit up. That is something that you will not have. Look, I love the building at the corner of Suffolk and Merrimack. Beautiful building and done pretty well, but it has concrete board, it has brake metal, it has caulking, it has materials that are not granite, brick, steel, stained glass. So what we replace it with will have a different emotional reaction than what we have now. So why not try to save it?
Well, and also there's the economic impact to the city. I mean, if Lowell wasn't a state park, right? If we hadn't, a national park, if we had never got that designation and we would have torn down all the buildings, the impact economically to the downtown businesses, to how many, is it at least 1 million or 3 million or whatever people who come to tour Lowell as a national park every single year, all that economic benefit is gone. And it's the same sort of thing. Like, this building is going to bring people into the community who have never been here before. And they're going to bring their money, and they're going to bring their ideas, and they're going to bring their great energy. And that's going to benefit the city in ways that a housing structure can't.
Oh, and from an arts component, how does that building lend itself in its current design to some type of a performance venue and other uses, as opposed to, again, I guess I'm going up to Nashua there, Main Street, the old Alex's Shoe is now a performing arts center that melds a little bit of the history of the building but it's got a really modern look.
Right.
I'm also kind of looking at what the Kerouac folks are planning further down on Merrimack Street. You got this historic church, but there's also, some kind of modern design that I think is important for attracting crowds.
Yeah.
How do you think the building being saved in its current structure is a benefit as opposed to building something different?
Right. I think it's really a piece of Lowell's history and culture that's only going to enhance the art that we're able to make. And art's one piece of the many pieces in the puzzle for the Smith Baker Center and our vision for it. But I think the history and the culture and the energy in the space, I know it sounds a little woo-woo, and I was talking to the little son about it after our first tour. And I said, it was like, you walk in and you can feel the energy. And as an artist and a musician, that's really important to me. Walking into a space that it's calling for you to create and be creative and be energized by this space in this room. It's hard to put into words. It's kind of breathtaking,
But
when you walk in.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to turn it back to you, Teddy, because you've been in that building. You've had students who have been working on their projects, performing in that building. What do you think? How do you think this?
I was a performer in that building.
Exactly.
For lack of a better term, it was. I mean, as best I knew as a grade school, I should say elementary school student, had a nice stage. We always admired the tall organ pipes. I don't think they were ever used while we were in there, but there's a nice little amphitheater with lower level seating, upper level seating. Do we know how many it seats?
Approximately 600.
Okay, so it's bigger than I remembered.
That's 600 adjusted. So currently the seating in the pews is closer to 1,000. And we would be developing a platform for seating that would be tables and chairs in that upper level, so that we'd be reducing the actual count that's there today, but providing a better use for that space so that people could enjoy tables and chair seating.
Okay.
And that's actually a great point, Dennis, is that we have a lot of venues in the city. That's one of the things people say to me. And so we said, well, we've almost, I think for sure, Dennis and I have almost been trying to talk ourselves out of this project since the beginning. We're like, this is going to be a big time sink. We're going to spend a lot of energy. So when we went in there, and every time we have a meeting, we're like, all right, how can we get out of this project? But we can't, right? We just can't. And that's a great example. We met with Peter Lawley from Spectrum Live and said, what do you think? Is there really a need for another venue? And he said, absolutely, because of the size. There's nothing in that size. We've got a lot of small, like 250 seat venues, and we've got the auditorium, 3,000 seats, but we really don't have the more intimate but not tiny sort of venue. So he feels, and I feel like he's got some experience that that it's worth there is a need for that.
They
size.
know how to manage buildings, including the aforementioned National Center for the Arts. But they pretty much every structure that they manage is some type of historic facility, whether it's up in Laconia, up down in Lexington. What is the fact that they kind of have a similar stage performance model up the street at the Kerouac thing? Does that make it redundant? Does that pose a challenge for what you were envisioning for it?
If I may, I don't think so at all. I think if anything, it enhances what we're trying to do. They have a really specific mission and vision and goals for what they're doing with the Kerouac Center. All we really are seeing is another opportunity to keep expanding business in downtown further down. We're drawing more people. It's really just going to be a beneficial relationship for the both of us. No real competition there. If anything, supporting each other and being able to build these two kind of historic spaces into something fresh and new for the city.
All right. They have something that I don't, unless you guys are holding out information on me that we don't think you have yet, and that is a wealthy benefactor to make it happen. I want to talk about how you're going to get the money to do the first part, how you're going to get somebody to trust your business model to give you the real big money, whether that's 20, 100 million, whatever that number is going to end up being, and ultimately what it's going to be and mean to the city. I want to talk about all of that. We're going to continue our discussion with the folks from the Saves Smith Baker Committee, I believe is the official title of the group. We're chatting here on the Daily Pulse, the Monday, June 23rd edition of the Pulse. Quick thank you to all of our sponsors. Of course, you know about Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massa, New Hampshire. Give them a buzz. You can find them online at realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on to protect its most valuable assets since 1982. And by the Massachusetts Pirates, I should say the red-hot Massachusetts Pirates. 4 wins in a row for the team that's bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Tomorrow we'll do another Inside the Pirates podcast and talk a little bit more about them. Watch for that to drop on Inside Lowell. Of course, the Daily Pulse drops every day at noon here on Inside Lowell. All right, so what's the vision? Let's say you get the final okay, and by the way, that you win the bidding, right? There's one other group that's interested in
at least
doing something. Yeah, have you spoken to them? Do they share a similar vision to what you have, or do they want to see housing or something totally different?
I spoke to Barry Garnick, the architect from Carlisle. That's worked in the city. He actually tried a housing situation at the St. Jean the Baptist Church. and worked at the Perkins Mill. So he's done renovations in the city and is familiar with housing. He said it would be a shame to lose this beautiful auditorium space. But you know, if they were to do housing there, they might be able to save the facade on Merrimack Street. So there's in the documents that we have from the city, there's a plan that was done in 2003 by the Office of Michael Rosenfeld in Carlisle that had 20 units in the building without breaking out of the skin. So that's not enough units.
Not for 20. The last known price tag was what, about 20 million when the Coalition for a Better Acre was trying to
Right.
do
We're
something
probably,
with it?
you know, in the 30 plus, because that's what things are going to be, you know, in the 5-year down the road time frame when we get this finally so housing would be so it's 7 stories allowed by zoning, 0 parking required on site. So that would be 7 stories of stacked housing. That could be 60 units. I could even see more than that if it had to be, but it could be 60 units. And that could possibly be enough to make that work.
And that's with saving some level of the facade, so it's people can still say, "Oh, that was the old church," or whatever. You're not, Chris. You don't like that idea.
Well, I don't, because you know, this is not a 7-story church, right? So you've got the building, and then you're going to have this thing behind it that's going to look kind of tacky, I think, but that's just me.
So, but their idea is housing. Your idea is some kind of performance venue.
Mixed use.
We've heard about museums, shared space, even a place for some religious organizations to come in and use it for what it originally was.
Yeah.
All right. So what is that? What is that vision? You've talked about the stage and the performance, but talk to me. What's mixed use? What would be the uses for that building?
So I guess the thing I'll jump at first was our kind of group name. So the name of our organization is the Lowell Center for the Arts. We're really trying to push that. We want to create this performing arts center, mixed use space, community space, and kind of moving away from the save Smith Baker. And now we've saved the building. Now it's time to revitalize it and establish the Lowell Center for the Arts in this space. I'll kind of take you through the grand vision of what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years when we're up and running and we're in business and it's going. We'll have on the first floor, we have 2 or 3 main spaces, one being a full service coffee shop, cafe, turn bar and lounge at night as a small performance venue and just a stream of revenue for us as well. In that same space, there's also going to be a shared use commercial kitchen. So a space for food entrepreneurs, food trucks, caterers, anybody that's looking for a commercial kitchen space that they can have a membership or pay a rental fee to come in and use the space. As well as storage, cold storage, dry storage areas for people to rent, shared kind of like a WeWork situation, shared co-working spaces, as well as administrative offices. So all kind of on that main level. And then you get up to the second floor, we have that 600-seat concert hall. It'll be kind of a flexible space as well. We want to be able to make it, you can use it for functions, events, weddings, receptions, parties, whatever it may be, a space for the community to actually come in and use the space as well, and not us kind of gatekeeping this beautiful space, but turning it over to the community. Along the sides of that space, there's space for music and arts classrooms, practice rooms, recording studios, spaces for creating and education, and just different community rooms and spaces like that. Am I missing anything?
On that level?
Yeah.
Well, we want to, I think that we can take a couple rooms and turn them into like a little studio apartment so that we can have some artists in residence as well. And they'd be giving some of the classes for, music, art, and hopefully singing education.
Does that allow you to bypass any potential hurdles with the covenant that it has to be used for housing if it's not?
Yeah, we're trying to get a really firm answer on that from HUD, because that's one of the issues, right? The city used HUD money to buy the building, and if they don't use it for something that's a HUD approved, then they have to repay the actual, talk about a bad deal. But anyway, they borrowed like $20,000. Now they're going to have to repay like $500, $480 or whatever. So we believe that the education piece of it will allow us to stay within that HUD regulation so that the city wouldn't have to pay back that money.
We have had conversations with city people about that, and it doesn't seem like the heavy lift that everyone's making it out to be. But we do need to take the next step and meet with HUD people and find out what specifically they're going to need to see us do to keep that restriction intact.
All right. So the vision that Owen just outlined.
One more vision.
Sure.
Today I learned that the Cambodia Town Group is interested in supporting this venue.
In the form of the Cambodian History Museum that was discussed at a council meeting.
So they would be looking at having their corporate offices there, but the basement has about 8,000 square feet and direct access to Cardinal O'Connell Parkway by way of stairs and double doors. So we'd be looking at potentially some storage for the kitchen, cold storage, dry storage, as well as some office space down there.
Is there an example of something like this that has worked, been able to salvage a building, or even been built from scratch that has all the uses that you discussed and is successful as a viable business entity or business model today?
There is a good model, and they don't even have as much as we have in our business plan, which is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Jimmy's Jazz and Blues Club. They took a large old YMCA building, and they turned it into the Jimmy's Jazz and Blues Club. It took them, when I talked to him, which was last year, they'd been in operation for 3 years. They used all private money, mostly loans, low interest loans that they had got, and they were going to turn a profit in year 3, being basically a venue for jazz and blues. And also, he said they had like 250 rentals for office space. He said we have tons of corporate events, plus, weddings and those kind of parties that we were talking about. So for sure, that to me, that's without even any of the day uses that we have.
So I'm familiar. I've been to a show at that venue. I didn't know it was more than that. I thought it was just, but it was weird. You walk up a bunch of stairs and there's a bunch of hidden stuff that you don't see. I just assumed offices or whatever. But is that about the same size?
I think it's a little smaller. I think it's
Smaller.
I think it's a little smaller.
Was it
similar?
What kind of shape was it in when they undertook this? Was it the same beat up, tear it down shape?
It was a wreck. It was a wreck, and he put $25 million into it. So numbers are the same, right? Basically, the numbers are the same.
Cheaper construction in New Hampshire, probably.
And also because he was because he did it privately, right? You're not waiting for grants. You're not worried about historic tax credits or anything like that. So for sure, that made it a little bit easier and cheaper. But yeah, so to be turning a profit in year 3, I mean,
does this qualify for historic tax credits, redevelopments, and all that, which can be very, very valuable to developers? That's an advantage that you folks
absolutely
have.
Absolutely.
I think we could also even look at Western Ave. It's not necessarily the same model, but a similar kind of a bunch of different revenue streams coming into one in an arts setting. It's kind of a similar vein, looking at that. We spoke with some people from the Arts and Business Council too about their thoughts and what it looks like, and it seems like we're on a similar track that they were on in kind of developing that project.
The one that comes to mind is Bell Forge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Bell Forge is a mental hospital originally that's in Medfield, Mass. That Medfield wanted to save. So this nonprofit was formed, is going to lease the site for 99 years, is breaking ground, I think this month. They finally raised the $20+ million. I forget the exact number. But it's a performing arts center, as well as music education and a kitchen. So there's a lot of similarities to what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
So there are business models that you can point people to and say it will work. All right, who's going to own it? Would it be so there'll be, I assume, there has to be a bidding process, right? So the gentleman you talked about who wants to do housing, and anybody else who might be interested.
Yeah.
If would it go to the highest bidder?
I don't think so. According to what I've understood, the city is actually putting more weight on a use of an art center, that they would like to have an art center there. So that's their preferred use. So if you come in, if say it was a similar bid, then the art center would have a higher weight.
Right. So let's say you're the successful bidders of the Lowell Center for the Arts.
Yep.
Is that what the entity that would own it, or are you looking for a development person to come in and be the owner? Will it be the three of you? Are you the faces of it along with the rest of your team?
I mean, at the moment we are, yeah. I mean, from that perspective, we are already a 501c3, right? We already have our nonprofit status. We're a true corporation. You know, all that work is done, so we could own the building. Would we instead, you know, create an LLC or something like that? Would we look for a partner who might have a long-term vision? But at the moment, the plan is that we would just maintain the building as, you know, as within the nonprofit.
Can you do it on your own if you have to? The Kerouac people were lucky. They found a country music star who loved Jack Kerouac. Is there a Zach Bryan version that likes old religious buildings,
Well, it's not.
or sees the value of this the same way the three of you do?
We believe there are. We have actually quite a long list of people who have some connection to Lowell, who also have lots of money, and not people within Lowell, right? I mean, the Lowell pockets are tapped, right? We have some fabulous projects going on in Lowell. We don't want to take money from the Boys and Girls Club to build this, to you know, renovate the Smith Baker Center, and it's the same pockets, right? So we're looking at going outside the city and looking for people who have a connection. Some of these people don't know it yet, but we're coming for them.
So I don't know how feasible it is, but I know there was an idiot podcast host who threw out. I think Lowell should have a boxing museum because of its rich history with the Golden Gloves and Mickey Ward. And I'm just thinking this Wahlberg and Bale character have made a ton of money. And I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have a boxing museum somewhere in there as well? I don't know. Does anybody know Mickey Ward? You don't? Doesn't your daughter live around the corner from him? And maybe
My daughter knows everybody. You
can
know.
go knock on. Can go knock on his door and say, "Hey, Mickey, what do you think about, you know? Let's get Wahlberg and Bale's money in here and let's build some."
So
Who are there realistic people that would be willing to do this?
But so that's one aspect, right? One great person comes in, writes us a check for $20 million. That would be awesome. But there's another way to think about it. Like if you like Alex Cooper has a podcast. She has like 3.6 million followers on Instagram.
And her mother's
from Lowell.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if she just says, you know what, hey, there's this great project going on. How about you click this link and give $10, right? If that happened and everybody gave $10, maybe some people would even give 20. That's their whole budget right there. So it doesn't have to be one big person with a giant purse. It can also be a couple of people who say, hey, you know what, this is a great project. What, you know, you believe in me. I believe in this project. Could you give us $10?
All right. Assuming you get the money, your business model, can you afford to keep doing it, or is it all these great ideas? Look, the world is full of people who thought they could operate a coffee shop or a restaurant, an entertainment venue, and it's the most. I talk everybody out of it if I can, only because I've lived in that hell for 50 years and I'm not smart enough to get out of it yet. But is it sustainable? It's a great idea. It's a great concept, but is it financially sustainable to be able to, you know, pay that mortgage off that you're eventually going to have, and everything else that goes into, you know, the costs of having a business, a building, etc.? Or is it going to be vacant again in 5 to 10 years because all these beautiful ideas didn't go anywhere, and now somebody's going to be stuck, you guys, having to maintain the building?
Yeah. I think, sorry to cut you off.
No, go right ahead.
I think our group and our nonprofit will really be the stewards of the building, you know, managing the philanthropy side of it, managing the outreach in the community, but then bringing other businesses in, you know, having a coffee shop established in the space, being a tenant of ours, instead of us taking on the operation of a coffee shop. We don't have the bandwidth to do that, you know, trying to run the building alone, you know, is what we want to do. And then be able to have small businesses come in and open their own place and be a tenant, to have a management company that's running the performance side of things, to have an educational component that's running on its own, you know. So thinking of it more as a rental opportunity and that sort of business model.
Does the math work?
The math does
You're the real estate person. You're the developer. Can you get an X amount of dollars for the coffee shop, X amount for the little office spaces, shared community centers, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit. I run a co-working space in Tingsboro, and same thing. It's 6,000 square feet. we make the numbers work nicely there. And I believe that in Lowell, there's even more of a demand, right? Tingsboro, a lot of people have a house. They've got an extra bedroom. But in Lowell, that might not be the case. You know, you're sitting there, your partner's sitting there, you're both on a Zoom call. You're like, I'm going to kill somebody really quickly. Or I can hop over to, you know, SBC and get some sanity, have some privacy. So we believe absolutely that the numbers work. And the other piece of that is that it is still going to be a nonprofit and it's doing a lot of education. So we are still going to be, we've already applied for grants before we had the building and they said, we love your project. You're in the TDI district. We'd love to give you money. You're doing this art thing. We'd love to give you money. But unfortunately, you don't own the building. So from the state, from other types of organizations, we've had personal interviews based on some of our grant applications with large foundations that are interested in giving us money. And they're just like, you know, please come back when you control that building. And so we believe that between the business and the grants that we would have a very successful something, and that also can give back a lot to the community.
All right. Will it still be called the Smith Baker Center, by the way? In your plan, will it be called the Smith Baker Center?
It's Lowell Center for the Arts at Smith Baker.
Okay, Lowell Center for the Arts at Smith Baker. So there will be some tie to the historic
absolutely.
name. All right. So you've been told we'll give you grant funding. We may be investors in this, but you need to get control of the building first.
Right.
To do that, you need to come up with up to $4 million.
Yeah, I mean, we based on our we brought both times that we've been in the building, we have brought a slew of people with us, experts and electricians, masonry people, carpenters, contractors, etc., through the building, and we've got our own numbers that don't approach that. So we believe that with $1 million, that we'll be able to stabilize the building nicely, and even to be able to open it up and let people come in and start having fundraisers and stuff there.
Do you believe politically that number, $1 million, can assuage the politicians who need to be assuaged, that it can be done and it's not just another stall?
So Teddy, we don't want to tear the building down. And the more you learn about the building, the more you realize that the building can be saved. So there isn't this pent up demand to see an empty site there. There's a pent up demand to see someone fix the building. So that's what we are here to do.
Yeah, and the immediate demand is to shore it up so it's not a public
exactly.
safety hazard.
Exactly.
So do you have the money raised already? I know you've been trying to and kicking the tires. How confident are you? Because I know there'll be a deadline. You have to write a check first, and then you'll have X amount of time to complete the work.
Yeah.
We're
on our way.
You're on your way.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect time to ask the community to
Please
It's a perfect time.
come check us out at 𝐿CALowell.org. So check out our mission, our vision. There's a link right there to donate. Even $1, $10, $5, $100, whatever it is.
It all adds up.
We've just launched a new fundraising campaign 2 weeks ago, and it's already off and rolling. We're over a few $1,000s just in
$10 donations.
The goal of this campaign was, let's just get the $10 donations. We're constantly meeting and talking with large scale donors, and we have all those moving things happening, but we got to get the boots on the ground. It's the spirit of Lowell, of these people that come together to do a project like this. So
what's your timeline? You have to
June
do
30th.
this by X amount of time. June 30th.
June 30th.
So you have 7 days to raise the $1 million that you believe.
Yeah.
By the way, when you took us down from the 3 to 4 million down to 1 million, did you put like a zero in that architect line item budget?
Yeah. We have a volunteer architect.
So
The
look,
services being donated. Yes, you're right.
you, to be clear, the three of you are not going to profit in any way,
Oh, God, no.
shape, or form from this. You will probably lose time, at the very least, money.
I've already pledged.
Eventually.
I've already pledged. So let's put it this way: there is already at least probably close to $300,000 that have been pledged by this group. So not only are we not
Just our board.
just the board,
Just the board.
members have already pledged almost $300,000. Not only are we not profiting
In cash, or is that in like trade for services?
No, cash. That's
Yeah,
cash.
okay.
That's writing a check. That's writing a check. Yeah.
That's actually impressive.
Yeah. So we want people to join us. Like, we're all investing. I am a volunteer CEO. It's
And you should see the work he does. And I'm just like, I can't wait till I can write you a check. Oh my God, he's fantastic.
All right, so by June 30th, you need to have raised this money, and then the process will play out
So there's a 3-week, 3-month due diligence period, and then there's an additional month to close. So it's a 4-month process after June 30th before we close.
Okay.
But just, I mean, we've basically had a month, not even a month, to raise this money. And if everything goes according to plan, we'll have almost $900,000 in what, 20 some days. If we can do that, can we raise the rest of the money in the next few years? Damn straight we can.
And you have to shore it up within 4 months of closing?
I think it's 6 months.
6 months. Okay. So by the end of the year, basically, you have to have that building buttoned down.
No.
So to
No,
speak.
because we won't even know if it
Closing,
could-
so closing is November 1st, if you will. So you're looking at May 1st of the following year, 26.
That it will be buttoned up and safe.
That will be stabilized. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we
Alright.
can remove the Jersey barriers, and we can have parking along that side of the building.
We can take the big X off the building.
Yeah, that would be nice. Okay, so all of that goes as planned, and you get it done. May 1st, it's shored up. Now, May 1st of 2026. Now, how long are we talking before opening night, all those lights beaming up to the sky, the ribbon cutting with all the politicians, and may include some of those who still want to tear it down. What's your goal? What's your time frame?
So May 2nd, we're for sure going to have a big, giant fundraiser. Again, everybody who's got any talent at all in the city is going to be coming and performing. And, you know, the great thing about fundraising, everybody wants to give you the last $1 million. So once people get in there and see it and really understand it, I feel like the money will flow. But we're estimating 5 years. We'd like to get it done in 3. So 3 years is our goal. 5 years is our
So by 2030,
Yeah.
that place
Completely
it's
completely
operational.
done.
kind of the same time frame as up the street.
Yeah, and our real goal too is to have a phased approach. So
Right.
we have multiple floors. That first phase, kind of getting in and getting the offices set up, the cafe space, get some revenue generating, get the
Yeah.
commercial kitchen up and running, have some revenue coming in, having people in the space, being operational on that first floor, while we're then finishing up the second and third floors, to be able to be in the building hopefully much sooner than that 5-year period.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, within the first 2 years, we'd love to be operating and having some sort of revenue coming in, people in the space working in the capital campaigns, things like that.
All right. Before I ask for your final thoughts, somebody wants to give you some money. How do they do it? How do they get in touch with you?
LCALowell.org. There's a button there. You can just give.
LCA
You can stop us in the street, give us a check. You know.
Yeah.
But and the other thing you can do, if you're not confident, right? If you think, well, maybe what if you don't get the building? I'm going to give you this $10, and what if I don't get the building? If it'll help you to be more generous, there's also a way on the website that you can pledge. So you can say, if you get this building, if you're successful in this, I'll give you $1,000. Pledge that money. And either way, so let's say you give the $10, we're still going to have a Lowell Center for the Arts. We want it to be in this building. But if you give the $10, the money is going to stay in the fund, and it's going to be going toward the Lowell Center for the Arts wherever it ends up.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts. Let's start with you, Chris.
Show us the money. Give us, this is like, if you care at all, if you give any shit about community, about beauty, about architecture, about the arts, about anything like that, if you want to have a really cool rooftop bar on the top of the Smith Baker Center, then just click lcalowell.org and just give us, $10. And when you come in there, you're going to say, hey, you know what? I helped to save this place. It's a pretty cool place.
Wait, you didn't mention the rooftop bar earlier.
I know.
That struck a chord with me. Is that-
That's a dream of mine.
Because there are 2 flat roofs there, right? Now, obviously, we're not going to have people on the...
But one's by the elevator, and the elevator could have one more stop, 5th stop, and to the roof deck.
So even like now we have an accessible rooftop bar, which is going to be so freaking cool.
Haverhill has one. It stuns me that Lowell doesn't.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And it will be looking the other way
Sure,
at the
wide
Greek
open,
church.
yeah.
No, at the Greek church. So it'll be looking in that direction. So you'll be looking,
out towards, like, Lewis
south
Street
and west.
and St. Patrick's
So the
Church as well.
sunsets will be amazing. Yeah.
All right. Final words, Owen.
Yeah, I think Chris hit it on the head. Like if you care, and you really want to see something like this, it only takes a tiny bit of help. Just a few dollars. We're really in that crunch time where we need that community support. But yeah, it's just so exciting leaving that building today again. It's so refreshing to walk in the space and feel the energy and see the stained glass in all its glory, and just imagine this hub for culture and community and the future of Lowell and the future generations to come. Yeah, it's really something special.
All right, Dennis?
So I'm more emotionally tied to the building. So Frank Lloyd Wright, favorite architect of mine, did this building in Chicago that is a similar church where you walk in the lower level and you go up this compressed stairwell and you come out to this amazing auditorium space. We have that here in the city. Frank Lloyd Wright didn't design it, but we had good architects design it, Marilyn Cutler. And the stained glass is not iconic religious glass. It's beautiful organic forms, something that you might see like with a Frank Lloyd Wright building. The stained glass is absolutely gorgeous. But the space itself, it's an amphitheater. So unlike the venue up the street at the Kerouac Museum, which is stadium seating, we have great sight lines for people on the
everywhere.
first floor and the second floor to see the stage, and near perfect acoustics. The barrel vaults are amazing. The acoustics are amazing. The venue is absolutely gorgeous.
All right. One question I forgot to ask. For Lowell taxpayers looking at this who know they're about to get, they're about to get that Niedermeyer paddle on the high school. That'll be more on that on tomorrow's show. But is this you gonna need any help from the city of Lowell? Besides, the permitting process and whatever, you're going to need, our Lowell taxpayers going to have to foot some kind of a bill for this in your vision.
As a matter of fact, Teddy, we're planning, once we're fully operational, that we'll pay taxes. We will pay real estate taxes to the city. So not only are we not going to be a drain to the taxpayers, we're actually going to help ease the burden a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we feel like it's the right thing to do.
And the businesses that'll be functioning will be paying taxes. So there's a lot of tax revenue coming from this building.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there'll be parking spaces that now can be generating, that aren't generating now. So
We are planning on having a shuttle system as well. I know people are very hot about parking. If you can't park on the stage, I don't want to go.
It's Lowell. If we're not parked outside the front door, I'll go to Boston and pay $70 to watch the Red Sox.
It's
game.
about a minute and a
But
half
that
drive.
quarter in Lowell really kills the budget.
So we've got some shuttle ideas in the works, and making sure that
great point.
there'll be plenty of parking, there'll be accessible parking on the site.
And it'll be easy for people to just, get out of the parking garage, hop on the shuttle, and it'll bring them right to the front door.
So you guys aren't just throwing a Hail Mary or swinging for the fences. You're just to keep the building safe.
We're not just
you,
a pretty
you already have a
face.
business plan. You've already thought this all out.
Absolutely.
go.
100%.
it's a great group that has really come together in the last year and a half. I'm really proud to be part of this.
Me too.
Me too.
All right.
Me too.
Well, I will say that I doubted whether you'd succeed. I had this conversation with your daughter, Michaela, a million times. But I've been rooting like heck for you. I'm a little bit more optimistic today than that you actually will succeed. It seems like you've got this planned out.
We're not just another pretty face, Teddy.
You're not- Awesome. All right. Dennis McCarthy, Owen Kelly, Chris McCarron. Thank you for coming in today. You got 7 days, so please, folks, if you want to help, now's the time to get the money in. They could really use it over the next 7 days. I agree with you, Chris, to save this as some kind of multi-use thing that's more like the Smith Baker Center that I remember rather than housing would be ideal. So thank you for coming in. Best of luck, and please keep me posted. And I will do a tour of the building at some point. Can we do an afternoon tour instead of a morning tour?
I think George Couloris, do you know George?
Of course, yes.
Can make something happen for you.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. Please let me know. Thank you to our guests. Thanks to you for tuning in. Hopefully you learned a little bit more, and I do hope that, like me, you're more optimistic about being able to save that building. I think that would be the best case scenario when all is said and done. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Asa Stutz. We're going to talk about that Lowell High School project where now we have the overrun figure, or do we? We'll talk about that. Plus, if you know Asa at all, you know he's our foreign policy expert here at Inside Lowell. And in case you slept through the weekend, There were some major worldwide foreign policy events in Iran. We'll talk about that. Asa will assume his Assad al-Stutzmani persona, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Wednesday, we're going to have Will Rosenberry, the Director of Elections in the city of Lowell. The election season is heating up. What a great time to save a building right in the middle of election season. We'll talk to him about how the elections will work and talk a little bit about what September and November will look like. I don't know what I have booked the rest of the week, but we'll always have something for you. The Daily Pulse, it drops at noon every day, keeping its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till next time, everybody stay safe. Please stay cool out there. Check out some of those cooling stations and water areas if you need to, and check on your neighbors who need some help as well, especially the elderly. And we'll catch you on the other side.